Welcome to Growing E-Commerce. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Ryan, and with me, as always, is
Chris Scharmüller, man. But I leave out Scharmüller because we agreed on it. It's just not sexy at all.
Yeah,
So it's Chris.
Just Chris. Plain Chris. And I'm just plain Mike. So
yeah, but you have a great last name, which is Ryan.
Man, do you know how hard it is to find an email address when your name is Mike Ryan?
Yeah. I can't imagine. I had no issues with Christian.Scharmüller because it's always the longest email address there is. But yeah, Ryan has some vibe to it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Chris.
But again, Chris is fine. Let's jump right.
All right, let's go into it. I'll talk about one day. It'll be on the Christmas episode this year.
Yes,
we'll talk about email
addresses or the sexiness of last name,
or how long it takes you to fill out paperwork with your name.
Yeah,
you must run out of boxes all the time,
and how tough it is to let Austrians understand how to spell Russian.
I think I might have talked about before. It's very hard to explain.
Yes.
But
you know what? You know what's hard?
What?
As well? To understand what is just hype and what is just plain reality when we talk about AI and how much AI will impact search. And I think it's really, really a tough thing.
You dropped a hell of a transition on me, Chris. That was smooth.
I had some time to prepare. What are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, well, Chris, I mean, let's think about it. Last couple of episodes, we talked about a report where I was the principal analyst called the Ultimate Guide to AI Max. Then we talked about a report put together with some partners called PPC Survey. Mm-hmm. And now it's time to put you in the hot seat. You did a boardroom presentation recently, and I
called it Think Tank.
Think tank. Excuse me. A think tank. That sounds way cooler.
I told them this was my intro, guys. Pressure is on. I have a think tank session.
Yeah, I feel like
just the boardroom.
Yeah, I feel like the CIA has like think tanks or something. Yeah. So tell us about this think tank, Chris.
Yeah, I think we talked briefly about it. It was in London, part of a convention we attended. And I had the chance to talk to, I think, roughly 20 high-level execs of literally leading online retailers, most of them active in Europe. And yeah, one of the major topics was to understand there's so much AI noise going on.
Yeah.
What is noise? What is just noise and hype? And what is reality? And what can we learn from it with regards to the paid search playbook for 2026 and beyond, in order to be on the winning side.
Mm-hmm.
This was the frame, and I think I did quite well because it was very, very engaging to talk with this CMOs. It was really a great conversation, great conversations going on, and we can go through a couple of items here because
definitely.
It's definitely interesting because not everything is reality. There's a lot of hype going on.
Definitely. Yeah. Tell us a bit about what's hyped, and also, I'd love to hear it, if you can, any of the reactions that you got to that stuff too. But
I think, I think in one of our last episodes we talked, so I think 3 or 4 things I would like to discuss today in a bit more in detail is certainly, we talk all the time about AI is going to disrupt paid search.
Yeah.
And we talked about that plenty of times.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I think it requires a nuanced discussion because what we think is reality, Mike, and I hope we can agree on it because at least I stated it in my talk, so don't put me on the spot here. But is that if we think disruption in a way that people start to use generative AI services to get information for their purchasing journey, I think that statement is true. There's a lot of data I can share with you which supports that claim. For instance, there's a McKinsey study done last year in August, and the question was, what is the preferred information source for your purchasing journey? And I think the results are not that surprising. It was kind of an heterogeneous, and we can show the slide here, an heterogeneous set of answers. But the two dominating layers were classic search engines, such as Google and Bing. Okay, point taken.
Fine.
With 31%. But already 44% of the people asked as part of the survey claimed that AI-powered search is their preferred information source for the purchasing process, which is ChatGPT, Google AI, and you name it.
Yeah.
So 44%. It's clearly the more dominant and the more preferred information source. So this is one piece of information which I think supports the claim that yes, with regards to the statement that yes, people adopt these new AI surfaces to get the purchasing information they need, that claim is reality.
Yeah,
for sure. We can discuss about that, how you see it, but it's certainly not supporting the claim that it really disrupts the way you should do your search marketing right now, because there's some data available which indicates that this is not happening overnight.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's probably hard to draw a line between disruption and transformation, and and it might also be a matter of perspective, like the eye of the beholder. Because if you're the benefactor of that, then it's easy to say it was transformation, and if you were on the losing side, you might feel disrupted. But I agree. I think there's clearly a big shift happening, something we have to call a transformation.
Yes.
But to call it a disruption, we don't know that yet. There needs to be a certain amount of speed and impact that is not clear yet.
Yes. I co-sign that. And again, just because of the fact that we look at the massive trajectory here, it doesn't mean that it impacts your core campaign, revenue contribution that significantly to massively shift your priorities and focus. And this was one of the conversations I had with a couple of DC players here. Okay, Chris, we understand that data and we understand that the claims here, but how to shift the balance now, right? We have our core campaign set up, which is PMAX, standard shirts, you name it. And on the other hand, we see this massive trajectory that people start to use other surfaces.
Yes.
And this is, I think, one of the major questions for a lot of online retailers, how to balance that shift. And I think, and at least this is the statement I really believe in, is that balancing of focus is more important than ever, because the future of search will look different. We also talked about that, but we are right at the beginning. So the ecosystem you're operating in is not changing overnight. I think this is the main claim. Prepare yourself, fair enough. But your core campaigns will be the major revenue drivers for you for the foreseeable future.
I agree. I think that, I mean, Google, it's not that like the advertisers or the businesses are the only ones who have something to lose here. Like, Google can't bump the table. They have skin in the game as well. This is a large majority of their advertising revenue. So it has to be managed. And the good news, I mean, it's good and bad, but the more dominant they become, which it kind of starts to look like that, but the more dominant they become, the more they're allowed to control that pace, the less they have to react to challengers and stuff like that. And so, I mean, obviously there are concerns about an incumbent becoming even more powerful, perhaps, but it's always a trade-off. There are benefits to that as well.
Yes, for sure. And the last time I checked, Alphabet is a Nasdaq-listed company, and top and bottom line matters to them. And they won't do massive disruptive things to their advertising ecosystem. We tackled this many times.
Yes.
So what I see is that yes, there is a massive trajectory going on that people adopt these new generative AI surfaces, but that doesn't mean that we are now flipping the script from classic advertising ecosystem to a full agentic commerce world overnight.
Yeah.
And this, and we have to understand that, right? And there's one case which I found really funny is, I mean, and maybe this is very telling to where we are right now. I mean, the Amazon versus Perplexity stuff, you heard about that?
Yeah.
Which is so telling that agentic commerce is just...
Do you want to spell that out for people?
Of course. Because it's so telling that there's so many things still unclear. In this case, and this was the fun part to start with, Amazon is not the villain, but the victim. Can you imagine that? It's unheard of. And basically, Perplexity has their product, and basically they offer more or less an end-to-end shopping assistant.
Yeah.
And yes, the shopping assistant is also buying on Amazon.
Yeah.
And Amazon claims now that there are areas of conflict here which are not solved at all. Their terms of use are forbidding bots, right?
Yeah.
And they say whatever Perplexity does here, it's very close to a bot. And on top of that, it's spoofed more or less because Amazon doesn't even know that it's an agent.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's spoofed as Google Chrome traffic.
Yeah. And it's someone has given authorization, so it looks like an authorized user.
Exactly. And through that, it's bypassing all the safety guardrails of Amazon. So basically, this is the identity is not clarified. What does that mean? And for me, the way more important motivation for Amazon to bring this to court against Perplexity is that all the ad ecosystem within Amazon, Amazon ads, recommendation engines, it's not working with agents.
Yeah.
There's no human being anymore clicking a buy button. Everything is running more or less through the API.
Yes.
So billions of dollars of advertising revenue are at costs as well. And then of course the question of accountability. If something goes wrong, who is accountable for it? So I think we're in a wild west situation.
Yeah.
And as long as there is no clarity, and this is not happening overnight, this agentic commerce, yes, it's the future of search to a certain degree, but again, it's not happening from one day to another.
Yeah, and it's so funny with Amazon as well because like there's another news story about small business owners complaining that Amazon is selling their products without permission.
Yes.
Amazon is saying like, hey, this is not cool. You have to ask us permission, or it has to be mediated through us. And then Amazon turns around, and I feel like this is very stupid behavior if they want to win that court case.
Of course.
Because if I would be Perplexity's legal team, I'm not a lawyer, but I assume that this is very undermining of Amazon's case.
It's a shit show. And to give context to listeners, Amazon has a product, I think it's called Buy For Me. It's, I think, a feature of the Rufus product. And yes, that's what they do here. They have a shopping assistant, more or less, which is buying, primarily searching on Amazon. But if the product is not available,
then it will go to another
website. And the websites are like, holy shit, I get sales from Amazon, but I'm not even listed on it. I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
And another thing is, I think Amazon just feels way better to be the villain. maybe they did it for that reason.
Jeff Bezos, he just fucking looks like Lex Luthor. You know, I'm sorry, but
from a geek driving in the Honda Civic to this testosterone.
Did you ever see? There was one time he was in like a literal mech suit. One time,
I know.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, we're just in this permissionless era, and an era of like everyone's taking liberties, and then everyone's complaining that liberties are being taken against them.
Yes.
And I read about this like Claude or Anthropic, and they're supposed to be kind of like the moral high ground in all of this. And they had a program to buy and destroy books. This is back when they were training their models. There was a team whose job it was to buy books, rip the covers off of them, and identifying information, and scan the pages at scale. They turned like all of human knowledge into like a slurry or a paste of just text to go into the models. And those are supposed to be the good guys in all this.
Yes.
Yeah, and it all drives
me. They believe it.
Yeah.
But if we put
sorry, I'm just
but if we put the emotions aside, I think this is the statement, and it's kind of controversial, but every business with limited resources, and I'm not just talking about money, but resources in terms of smart people, please don't do this full switch. don't focus 90% of your best people on agentic commerce because it's not happening overnight. The data clearly shows this.
Well, do we want to talk about ChatGPT?
What's going on there?
Well,
my favorite guy, Sam.
Yeah.
Do you like him?
You know my feelings. No, because I honestly, this is inappropriate of me to say, but no one would listen to a podcast if it were just appropriate all the time.
Spit it out.
I worry about that guy's personal safety. I'm starting to worry because, I mean, after just a few months, they stepped back from shopping, which was one of their only paths to making money.
To make money.
And what they had, by the way, as it turns out, I mean, and there was a bunch of research to back this up from different areas, but as it turns out, they basically were just scraping Google Shopping. Just imagine you've invested tens of billions of dollars in a company.
Yes.
And one of their main monetization strategies is to be a thin Google Shopping wrapper.
Yes.
Your competitor, who could stop it at any time, probably. I don't even know why they allowed it. And then they walk away after a few months. Maybe Google sent them a cease and desist behind the scenes. We don't know.
Might be the case because it doesn't make sense at all to shut this down after a couple of months. It just doesn't make sense because again, it's the only for me, existing path to reduce the burn rate.
But if you thought that e-commerce was going to be easy and just happen, it takes time.
Yes. Again, the statements we made about this.
Yeah.
Everyone who thinks that these new players arrive and yes, they have their LLMs, but to build an ecosystem, to buy and to advertise, to let advertising happen on scale, Google, it took Google years to perfect this, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the case.
Google's nearly the only one who has solved it. Maybe Amazon. I mean, but these are the two players at this point.
These are the two players
in agentic commerce. Yeah.
And by the way, maybe this leads me to the third layer of noise I wanted to unpack today is and and it's a perfect segue. Everyone who thinks that there will be new players on the block is right. There will be new players on the block, but anyone who thinks that they will eat significantly into the market share of Google, you are wrong, fella.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. By the way, I have been wrong here too, because 1 year ago I said it's the first time Google faces real competition.
Well, I mean, that was true.
It was true, but it turns out the competition is not moving the needle here, Mike. It's fascinating. I mean, the move ChatGPT communicated now, and it's the dominance of Google and the way Google embeds the idea of AI into their advertising ecosystem is just second to none.
Yeah.
I'm more bullish on Alphabet than ever.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I don't know if you see it differently, but Google, the dominance of Google will not be broken for sure. No.
No, I agree, and I mean, I want to talk. You tell me when it fits in. Like, I want to talk about the new attributes and their strategy for how they approach.
Yeah, let's unpack. Yeah, of course.
I mean, like Google announced a while back that they would be having these dozens of new conversational attributes, they call them, and I can't go into too much detail here, just because it's not
an NDA.
Yeah,
you sold your soul.
Well, it's not all public knowledge yet, but I mean, I think it's fair to talk about it at a high level, a strategic level.
Yeah.
You know, we talked that in some ways this feels like it's very fascinating. It feels like an admission that AI alone is not up to the task. It emphasizes how important this infrastructure layer really is. And Google has so many merchant centers and merchants and feeds and all this data out there, and they've built their product graph on it, and they have just years and years of advantage there, where you see why OpenAI wants to scrape them. But, you know, they're also kind of saying that that's not enough. They need even more.
Yes.
They need more structured data. But what I would say is a bit new to this conversation, something that I found interesting at a high level, is that when you look at these attributes, there are ones that are just net new, let's say, and there's places where they're just doing a lot to kind of close gaps. They're closing gaps with the OpenAI feed, and it remains to be seen how relevant that will be. But they're closing gaps with Meta's feed, and I think it's a two-way strategy, and it goes towards what you're saying of just further cementing their power, because it makes it that, like, I think why they close those gaps. On the one hand, they want the Google feed to be the authoritative feed.
Yes.
That's that feed that you should use if you're going to advertise on these other channels or appear organically or whatever the case might be. Like, so be it. They can't stop you from doing that. But then their feed should then power that. Like, you should be focusing your effort on your Google feed, because your Google feed will cover channels X, Y, and Z. And the other thing is that, if you're investing effort in these other attributes in OpenAI or Meta or elsewhere, then Google should be able to ingest and benefit from that data. And so it's just, it just furthers these flywheel-like effects that are already in place. Yeah.
No, for sure. And by the way, maybe this is a nice segue to the probably most important question. Okay, given this ecosystem we live in here, and again, that the ecosystem won't dramatically change. Yes, there will be adoption of these new AI services, but the ad inventory, the campaigns which serve also this new AI service, it's the power pack. It's the things and make sure that you do everything in your power to focus on that, because this will be decisive for your outcomes. And talking about that, the things you unpack now with this new conversational data feed. What is it? Fields, layers,
attributes. Yeah.
I think this is a very, very important question, because this was one topic a lot of guys were interested in. Okay, what to look at now to make this data feed future-proof?
Yes.
What is your take on it? Because the data feed will be in the center of everything.
Yeah.
What to look at?
I mean, I think what Google wants here is that we're taking things that might exist anywhere else on your website or in your business knowledge and bringing them in there. So, it's this idea that, is there stuff from your Q&As that could be surfaced? Is there stuff from reviews? People have been integrating reviews in a long time, but I think there's, much more semantic ways of doing that. And everything, because Google's own product taxonomy is not that detailed, actually. And that's why it's really important that you have your product types to help support that, so that you've got a clear taxonomy, as detailed as it can be, supplementary, and that you've got any place from your descriptions and your titles. Like, at this point, I talked about books getting chopped up earlier, but you should think of every piece of semantic or language-based knowledge that exists somewhere.
That's it.
And how can you help transport this into your feed? How can you do things to give that in a structured way to Google? Because then you're alleviating some of the lifting that they would have to do otherwise.
By the way, super smart move by Google.
Yes.
To outsource that last mile. And I think to really focus on this semantic conversational layer, I think this will be this will be the biggest key. By the way, next to native commercial requirements, that you really are as precise as possible with the total cost thing, like taxes, return, fees, whatever. I think this will be very important. But going back to adding this conversational layer, there's quite a statement, and I've never seen a dedicated statement of Google here. I hope I'm allowed to share it. But when I was in Dublin, I talked to very high level execs. My question was, do you already see a change in search patterns for the people, or with regards to people who are now using AI mode? And they said yes. What they see what they saw immediately is that the length of the search queries are already at the 2.5x compared to classic search products. So people adopt this more conversational, more natural language again. And I think this perfectly meets the requirements, right? People search different, and you have to meet that somewhere with your data structure.
Absolutely. And a while back now, I did an interview with Ginny Marvin, and I asked her about that. And She had a lot of statistics at her fingertips there. So I don't remember them all, but it's definitely worth going and checking out that interview, because I was pretty stunned by what she said. You can really see that search is changing fast.
Yes.
And we no longer have to repeat the same 15% of search terms every day or new kind of stuff that Google said for years, because there's a material change happening now.
Yes, this is material.
And I think ultimately the sense of these these attributes is to help. It's that you hear about grounding in AI, like it helps the AI not hallucinate. It helps it get things right, have details. And this is all grounding for the AI, because when people start asking very specific questions about products, the AI, if it doesn't have the detail available,
Doesn't know.
It won't know. But the AI doesn't know what doesn't know. It will just invent a plausible answer.
Of course.
It just will say, it'll say like, this is statistically, and I mean, it's an oversimplification, but, and so this is all grounding material so that it has the data available. It doesn't have to guess, but it can take on that and then draw some inferences and
I for sure co-sign that. And one CDO of a very, very big player based in the UK asked me, from our perspective, what is the most important interface to look at to get an understanding how the product information should look like in the future. And I told them, look, the days, and this has always been that way, but the days where you have a very much inside-outside driven approach in terms of that you have a product manager sitting somewhere in a silo and thinks, this is the information, I got this information from the brand and this is how we should do it. If you do it that way and you don't manage the interface to the people who are really in the market, your online marketing experts, if you don't manage this interface properly, you will lose.
Yeah.
Because hopefully the market will tell you how the people search now.
Yes.
So this is...
I think it's a great point, and it remains to be seen how much transparency we'll get into those conversations. But that is one area, with AI Max, it's still in development. It seems a bit paused, but they're working on this thing called synthetic keywords. Exactly. And that's the exact purpose of that, is to take these very long queries and prompts and so on, and create something digestible that you can see and learn from. And that's the perfect way where you can really, you can then learn from the market which attributes, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think to all, I don't know, people who can really take decisions and to set up your organization the best way possible, you have to really empower your online marketing people to have a say, right, with regards to data feed structure, to product information. This is one of the big misunderstandings, I think, that product information, product data has to be defined by the people who manage the products. Yes, to a certain degree, but what's really going on is in the market, right?
Yeah.
And Google is the market. Let's face it.
Yes.
I mean, Mike, maybe one last thing before we wrap it up.
Sure.
Because this is also something. By the way, I quoted you.
Oh, thanks.
I said one of the. I want to share some roses with you here now.
Okay.
I said, one of the smartest e-commerce minds in the world, Mike Ryan. Luckily, he's working for us. And you said algorithms think per auction with no view longer than a month's budget.
Yeah.
Why it's a great quote.
Thanks. Yeah.
And why I'm stating this is because we talked now about making the data available, structured, unified. But anyone who thinks job is done, to quote the great Kobe Bryant, job is not done.
Yeah.
It starts right there, because you have to think about how to make this data actionable.
Yes.
And I think and I would really love to show that slide, because if you have this data available, this data is basically your context window. The algorithms can learn on.
Yeah.
And the context window on the one hand is, of course, to provide that data and to think about how I can put this into signals that the algorithms really can work with it. And the signals in the ecosystem we're living in today are segmenting the products according to the data you have and what you want to achieve with regards to your business goals. Put it in the right campaign structure and use budget and target ROAS settings, not just as a goal.
Yes. Yeah.
I repeated that statement there.
Yeah.
We talked about this in one of our episodes.
Yeah, we did it earlier this year.
I'm really emotional about this because it's so shallow sometimes that we always talk about, yeah, you have to have the right data structure. Yeah. But this is just the beginning. So you really have to think about how to put this into signals that
Yes.
the algorithms work as hard as possible for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, helping these systems understand your business goals, your product data, your semantic data, like,
Yes.
because ultimately it's so funny. Like they're having conversations. They're like your distributed sales force. They're having conversations with your potential customers who are shopping around, and there's this wealth of knowledge from past customers in the forms of reviews and Q&A and all kinds of stuff like that. And that's why they want to tap into that, because that's the same type of thing I do. If I'm shopping something, I look at the reviews or Q&A.
Yeah.
Of
course.
And right now it kind of sucks doing that. But if the AI can do that digging for me, then it's a beautiful thing.
Of course. And let's think beyond that. All the highly business relevant data, return rates, basket data, price competitiveness. I think you really have to think it very much unified, and that's a challenge in itself. But it doesn't stop there. If you have this unified data layer, you have to think about how to make it actionable.
Yes.
And this is huge. And I got some very interesting feedback because I thought maybe this is too operational for CMOs of this world, but actually it's not. They really understand the challenge here, and I highly appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
For sure.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us from officially, in my mind now, it was a CIA think tank, and you can't change it.
It was a massive think tank, and we discussed the path to global world domination.
Oh, that's another one we're going to...
It's not the best time to talk about that, right?
Hey, I'm on the hook on that one. So...
No, thanks for your time, Mark.
Yeah.
By the way, anyone who is interested in getting the slide deck I presented, give us a shout out. We'll do for sure some interesting stuff in there.
Absolutely. Then thank you, Chris, and let's wrap it up for this week.
It was a pleasure, sir.
Absolutely. This has been another episode of Growing E-commerce. And as always, this is brought to you by Smarter E-commerce, also known as SMEC. You can learn more at smarter-ecommerce.com. And actually, I think if you go in our web navigation in there and our web taxonomy, you'll find something called a content repository where Chris's content is probably already in there. Every webinar, talk, report, everything we ever do basically is all unified there. So go check it out. There's a ton of great stuff there. All right. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.